She's turned Prince Harry into a man of non-substance. It just struck me as like completely empty, completely fake.
Allegedly, Meghan Markle's family drama just took a shocking turn. And her brother says the truth is far more explosive than anyone realized. The story behind the royal smiles may not be what you think. Keep watching, subscribe now, and get ready for the jaw-dropping details. Thomas Markle Jr. didn't just give an interview. He unleashed a wave of allegations that, if true, could change how people see Meghan Markle forever. He claims the polished public image the world knows hides a far more complicated and far less flattering reality. In his version of events, the story isn't about a royal fairy tale gone wrong. It's about a sister he once adored, a family he says has been shut out, and a prince who, in his view, has been transformed in ways the public can see just by looking at him. These aren't vague accusations. Thomas paints vivid, sometimes painful pictures from his past and his present. But here's the twist. He insists the warning signs were there long before Meghan ever stepped into royal life. Thomas recalls the day Meghan was born as if it happened yesterday. He describes being the first person to hold her, feeling her tiny fingers wrap around his hand. Back then, he says, it was impossible not to love her instantly. Their early years were filled with normal family moments, shared meals, laughter, and celebrations. He remembers her childhood dreams, the times she'd light up at school achievements, and the warm connection she had with their father. But in his telling, those days feel like they belong to another lifetime. He says he now lives in a reality where Meghan doesn't return calls, doesn't write, and behaves as if her family no longer exists. For Thomas, the silence is louder than any argument. One of Thomas's sharpest claims is about Harry himself. Before the wedding, Harry was known for his independent streak, his ability to command attention on his own. Thomas says that version of Harry is gone. In his words, Meghan runs every public appearance, and standing at the front, deciding who speaks and when. He describes Harry as looking stressed, cautious, even worried about saying the wrong thing in public. According to Thomas, this isn't the natural evolution of a marriage. It's a deliberate shift in power. Whether viewers agree or not, it's hard to ignore the way Thomas frames it. A once confident prince now playing a supporting role. And that, he says, is exactly how Meghan wants it. To the outside world, Meghan's reputation has been that of a warm, relatable figure. The charity work, the speeches, the smiling photos, they all paint a picture of compassion and grace. But Thomas insists this is only one side of the story. Behind the curtain, he alleges, is someone who is strategic and controlling, someone who knows exactly how to craft a narrative. He says her famous self-made journey isn't entirely accurate, and that key parts of her past have been reshaped to fit a certain storyline. One example he points to is her wedding guest list. Instead of inviting close relatives, he claims, Meghan filled the seats with celebrities and high-profile acquaintances she'd met more recently. For him, it was more than a snub. It was a public declaration that family wasn't part of her new image. According to Thomas, Meghan and Harry's decision to step back from royal duties was the moment everything shifted. In his view, they had the public's support, a strong platform, and a rare kind of influence. But walking away from it meant stepping into uncharted territory and bringing the tension between them and the rest of the royal family into full view. He believes this move wasn't about freedom, but about control. Staying in the royal fold meant balancing tradition with personal choice. Leaving meant Meghan could dictate every detail without compromise. And for Thomas, that was the ultimate goal. The fallout, he says, wasn't just political or public. It deepened personal divides that had already started forming behind the scenes. If you ask Thomas, the real fracture happened when Meghan began editing her past. He claims she stopped mentioning the people and moments that shaped her early life, replacing them with a new version of events where the family barely existed. It wasn't just about being excluded from the wedding. Although that, he says, hurt deeply, it was about the sense of being written out completely, as though they were characters in a story she no longer wanted to tell. For him, this wasn't an accident or a misunderstanding. He believes it was intentional. A clean break designed to keep the public focused on her present life, not her past connections. Then there's their father, Thomas Markle Sr. He tells his story with less fire and more sorrow. He admits to making a mistake before the wedding, a decision he calls dumb, and one he's apologized for repeatedly. But in his view, no single moment should outweigh decades of love and support. He lives just hours from Meghan's home, yet says they haven't seen each other in years. His house, once a gathering place for family, now feels quiet. And while he doesn't chase headlines or demand apologies, he does keep hoping for a knock at the door that never comes. His words are less about anger and more about longing, the wish to be part of his daughter's life again, to meet his grandchildren, to share in their everyday moments. Thomas Jr. also claims there was a moment inside the palace that sealed Meghan's decision to leave the UK. He describes it as a final confrontation with Queen Elizabeth, a moment of tension that, in his telling, was far more significant than any headline about media pressure or public scrutiny. While there's no official record of such an event, Thomas presents it as the missing piece in the puzzle, the moment that confirmed Meghan wouldn't stay in the royal system. He links it to a pattern he believes he's seen before. When relationships or situations no longer serve her, she moves on quickly. Looking forward, Thomas's most dramatic claim is about what might happen next. He believes Meghan's interest in Harry is closely tied to his royal title and the status it brings. If that ever stopped benefiting her, he predicts the relationship could change in ways Harry isn't prepared for. This isn't just speculation, he says. It's a pattern he's seen play out in her friendships, her work relationships, and her family ties. When the value fades, so does the connection. It's a provocative statement, and Thomas knows it. But he says it's not meant as an insult. It's a warning. Back on the West Coast, Thomas Sr. is living in a quiet home just a few hours away from Meghan and Harry. The irony is heavy. In pure geography, they're close. But in reality, he says they might as well be living on different continents. He talks about his days in a way that makes you picture them. Mornings start slow, with a cup of coffee and a quiet look out the window. Sometimes he wonders what it would be like if Meghan just pulled into the driveway one afternoon. What would he say? Would he even recognize the woman she's become? He's open about his health challenges over the past few years, the kind that make you think differently about time. He says he's not looking for pity, he's looking for connection. Each birthday that passes without a call or a card from Meghan is a reminder of how long the silence has lasted. In his words, it's not about grand gestures or public reconciliations. It's about the small human moments. Sitting around the table, telling stories, laughing about the old days. He imagines what it would be like to meet his grandchildren for the first time, to hear them call him Grandpa. He insists there would be no speeches, no awkward questions, no media involvement, just family, in the most private sense of the word. It's a vision that keeps him hopeful, even when reality tells him the chances are slim. He even shares a light memory to prove his point. When Meghan was a little girl, she once baked cookies for him. They were slightly burnt, and the icing was uneven, but she stood there grinning as if she'd just presented a royal feast. That memory, he says, is proof that they can share joy in the simplest ways. But as much as he tries to keep the door open, he admits there's a clock ticking. Most of the men in my family don't live far past 80, he says. I know my time isn't endless. I'd just like to spend some of it with my daughter again. This mix of realism and hope paints a vivid picture. A father who's not chasing headlines, but chasing the chance to be part of his daughter's life before it's too late. And this leads to a question that can't be answered in a single headline. Where's the line between protecting your own peace and shutting out the people who helped shape your life? On one side, there's Meghan's story, the one she's told publicly about setting boundaries, choosing her own path, and keeping her inner circle small. On the other side is her family's story, one filled with claims of being cut out, ignored, and rewritten out of her past. Thomas Jr. tells his side with a kind of bluntness that leaves no room for doubt about how he feels. He talks about Meghan's rise as something calculated, a ladder she climbed quickly, leaving behind those who no longer fit the image. Whether that's fair or not is up to viewers to decide. Thomas Sr.'s approach is different. He doesn't point fingers with the same energy. Instead, he talks about what's missing: birthdays, holidays, the simple rhythm of family life. He doesn't say Meghan owes him anything. He just says he wishes they could talk, even once, to bridge the gap. And then there's the bigger what if that lingers in the air. If Meghan hasn't reconnected in all these years, will she ever? Or is the distance now so wide that neither side can cross it? For the audience, it's a tricky question. We don't know every detail. We weren't in the room for private conversations or personal conflicts. What we do see are two versions of the same story, one about self-preservation, the other about loss. Here's where it gets even more complicated. If you believe Thomas Jr., Meghan's choices aren't just about family differences. They're part of a bigger pattern. He predicts that one day the same dynamic might play out with Harry, that when the circumstances change, so will the closeness. It's a bold claim, but it forces you to think. If that prediction came true, what would it mean for the way this chapter in royal history is remembered? Would people see Meghan as someone who fought for her independence, or as someone who walked away from relationships that didn't fit her narrative? And then there's the possibility, however slim, of reconciliation. Imagine the public surprise if one day Meghan and Harry appeared in a candid family photo, sitting in Thomas Sr.'s backyard with cups of coffee. No media, no staged poses, just a father and daughter catching up. Would that single image undo years of tension in the public eye? Or would it simply raise new questions about why it took so long? In the end, this isn't just Meghan's story or her family's. It's the kind of situation many people face on a smaller scale. When to hold on, when to let go, and whether forgiveness is possible after years of silence. So now it's over to you. If you were in Meghan's position, would you reopen the door? Or if you were in Thomas Sr.'s shoes, would you keep waiting, knowing the call might never come? The only thing clear right now is that the silence is still holding. Whether it will break, that's a chapter yet to be written. So what do you think? Is this a case of family rift being taken too far? Or is there more to the story than anyone on the outside could ever understand? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear your take. And if you're ready for more behind-the-scenes royal stories and untold family histories, click the next video on your screen now. There's so much more to uncover.